Good day and welcome to Vox News from our London studios. I am Pamela Bonkiu. Angolans will head for the polls today, a second time in 2 decades for the nation still recovering from civil war. Its youth movement has been pressing for change through the use of social media networks to voice demands for a fairer distribution of wealth and freedom. Analysts have predicted that the elections will not be free and fair. In the capital, Luanda, Angolan police arrested several members of the Casa CE opposition party yesterday after they tried to enter the Electoral Commission building to demand credentials to observe the vote at polling stations, stated a party official. William Tonnet, a candidate for the opposition Casa CE party, told Reuters that police guarding the Electoral Commission building in Luanda fired shots to keep back dozens of young Casa CE militants who tried to approach the building. Let us hear more from Caveira Fadstudo, Angolan artist and activist, and also from Elias Isaac, Angolan country director for Open Society.
For all we know, there's already a fraud being cooked. You know, that's why we've set up a site where people are sending SMS and phone calls reporting like the fraud, you know what I mean? Why? Because these people, they're controlling the Electoral Commission. So they doing everything on their favor, you know what I mean? And deep down, majority of people, they had enough.
As long as Angola is a good business partner, you know, of EU, of the United States, you know, I don't think that, you know, there will be much pressure on the Angolan government. Secondly, is the issue of China. I think China has become a big threat to Western interests, you know, and Western countries do not really want to raise up, you know, critical issues with the Angolan governments because they know that they have China who can very easily substitute them. Changes have to come from within. No longer, you know, the belief that change comes from outside is long gone, you know. This will not happen. The opposition parties, it's their duty, you know. They have to organize, you know. They have to mobilize. It may be a long road, you know, until we get there, but one day we'll get there for sure.
The Garankuo Magistrates Court ruled yesterday to detain the 270 Lonmin miners until their case is heard in 7 days' time. The presiding magistrate, Esau Bodigello, said the available information was not sufficient to start their bail applications. But critics have ridiculed the move, saying prosecutors are only helping to inflame an already tense situation by seeking a mass indictment that will eventually get rejected. The men's lawyers have sought their release, citing the need for medication for chronic illnesses such as tuberculosis and HIV. Lonmin, the world's third largest platinum producer, was forced to shut its mining operations for almost 3 weeks due to a dispute between the two main mine workers' associations. Here is Frank Leseyengo, National Prosecuting Authority spokesperson, and Pulen Kitse, defense attorney.
We are very happy that the court has ruled in our favor. This will allow the state to go and verify personal details of the accused.
I'm not disappointed. We've done a good job. We've put good work in it. And I think we've done a great job. We've worked for hours and we're fine.
Senegalese president yesterday announced his intentions to abolish the 100-seat Senate in order to raise funds needed to fight the flooding in Dakar, which has killed 6 people and left several neighborhoods inundated with water. The country's media has organized for people to donate money for victims in the disaster. Senegal TV announced to make a gift of $10,000 to help the victims and has urged everyone to partake in the solidarity. The donation has now reached at least $760,000. Here is Senegalese State Minister Miriam Babiene.
We were sensitized by the media, we were sensitized by what we saw, and we are here to show how much we care about the populations in the rural area, the population in the suburb of Dakar. That's why we are here.
The FPI party of former President Laurent Gbagbo says the Ivorian government is using attacks as a pretext for arrests and crackdowns. The government, on the other hand, stands firm in its conviction of non-tolerance for terrorism. The opposition party yesterday accused the government of using a campaign of repression against supporters of Laurent Gbagbo, using attacks on soldiers and police as cover. Some 20 people have been killed so far, most of them soldiers in raids. It has ignited unrest in the world's top cocoa grower, which remains deeply divided after a year of civil war which claimed 3,000 lives. African nations have been advised by the United States to pool their air force assets in a NATO-style effort to take on terrorists and international criminals. The U.S. believes this would reduce their struggles to fund costly independent operations. The U.S. officials spoke at the start of 3 days of talks between American officers and their African counterparts, drawing comparisons to NATO and its policy of pooling resources between nations. Washington is quite concerned with Africa-based al-Qaeda agents, traffickers and illegal fishing, and hope to help in improving cooperation across the continent. Here is General Philip Breedlove, commander of U.S. Air Forces in Europe, and also Louis Lukens, U.S. ambassador to Senegal.
It is critical that we make the right investments and establish effective partnerships to meet our objectives. A lack of resources can often frustrate these partnerships and efforts to counter these extremists, make it an imperative for us to identify the right requirements and to advocate for the resources needed to build and train the right capabilities.
There's no reason that in the future, information from a Senegalese aircraft couldn't be used to support Senegal, the Gambia, Cape Verde, and Mauritania as they pursue illegal fishing boats or narco-traffickers through each other's waters. There's no reason that information from a Ghanaian aircraft couldn't be used to stop illicit trafficking across the borders of Guinea, Mali, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast.
Nigeria's flour mills plan to invest 100 billion naira, the equivalent of $600 million over the next 5 years, in order to meet up with rising demand in Africa's most populous nation for pasta, bread and fast food. The firm intends to double its milling capacity to 12,000 tons per day to meet the demands of the growing middle class who are getting into the fast and convenience foods habit. Last week, flour mills posted a 32% rise in profit before tax to 5.1 billion naira in the first quarter on 70 billion naira turnover. Here is Jack Vortier, Chief Financial Officer for Flour Mills Nigeria.
Nigeria economy is growing, is evolving. GDP per capita is also improving. Taste of Nigerian consumers is also evolving. We are here to meet Nigerians' expectations. And this is a reason, and also in terms of quality of the products, in terms of satisfaction. The way forward is very clear. We still have around 20 billion naira from our rights issue. This will enable us to finance our capital expenditure, our growth for the next 18 months. Then we have also a healthy cash flow, which will enable us to continue our expansions. That's the way we see it. But definitely we see that we want to invest at least 20 billion per year in the coming years.
Yesterday, the ministers of the UN Security Council met to discuss means of easing the Syrian humanitarian crisis. The absence of top US, Russian and Chinese diplomats is indicative of the body's inability in ending the 17-month conflict. The 15-member council continues to remain in a deadlock, while Syria is reeled further into the vortex of a civil war. This paralysis goes on as Russia and China have blocked 3 Western-backed resolutions that criticize Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and threaten sanctions. France, which is the council president for August, convened the meeting in the hopes that the body could unite and deal with the aid crisis. Let's hear more from Can Eliasson, UN Deputy Secretary General, and Ahmet Davutoglu, Turkey's Foreign Affairs Minister.
In July, World Food Programme food distribution through the Syrian Arab Crescent and local partners reached 820,000 people throughout Syria compared to 250,000 in April. And we are reaching ever more people with non-food items, health kits, water and sanitation services. But, and this is a big but, as the conflict intensifies, the number of people in need clearly exceeds our capacity to assist. We are now revising the humanitarian response plan to be able to assist up to 2.5 million people.
I was encouraged particularly by the fact that the humanitarian dimension, which calls for an urgent action, would be on the agenda, and become hopeful that the Council could finally act with one voice, taking long overdue steps, because it was a humanitarian issue. Apparently, I was wrong about my expectations. I understand that the Council today will not be able to put forward a unified position yet again to stop the humanitarian tragedy. This meeting will not end even with a presidential or press statement, let alone a robust resolution.
54 asylum boat survivors have been sent back to Indonesia as the search still continues for scores missing from the boat believed to have sunk. Australian and commercial ships plucked the survivors from the sea yesterday in a rescue operation 75 kilometers southwest of Indonesia's Java Island. The search followed a distress call on Wednesday which said it had 150 people on board. The wooden boat they were on is believed to have been ferrying mostly Afghans. Asylum seekers usually target Christmas Island off Australia's northwest coast to get to the country. They make the journey from Indonesia in poorly maintained boats. We hear more from one of the survivors.
Like 3 days we were in a boat. After 3 days the boat is gone. Like 4 days already we were in the water inside. Like just without boat, without flight jacket, without like everything. But I mean, God is so great that we're still alive right now.
A Tokyo court has today ruled that Samsung Electronics mobile devices did not violate an Apple Incorporated patent, awarding the South Korean firm a victory a week after it lost a landmark patent case in the United States to Apple. The case was based on Apple's claim that Samsung illegally copied technology from its iconic iPhone and iPad tablet for some of its Galaxy smartphones and the Galaxy Tab. The U.S. jury awarded Apple $1.05 billion in damages and is now seeking a speedy ban on the sale of 8 Samsung phones in the U.S. market. This ruling was criticized as biased. Now is off to the U.S. Open and the tennis courts where Serena Williams is through to the third round of the U.S. Open in the Arthur Ashe Stadium, while her sister Venus is bowed out after a tough being unseated following her revelation that she was suffering from an autoimmune disease, Sjogren's syndrome. Serena remains a favorite for the women's single title, which would be her 15th Grand Slam singles crown. Though Serena struggled in the second set after an impressive performance in the first, she dug deep to beat Spain's Maria Jose Martinez Sanchez 6-2, 6-4. We wish you luck in the next round there, Serena. Thank you for watching, and for more news updates, please visit our website at www.voxafrica.co.uk/news. Goodbye. Good day and welcome to Vox News from our London studios. I am Pamela Bonkiong. Angolans will head for the polls today, a second time in 2 decades, for the nation still recovering from civil war. Its youth movement has been pressing for change through the use of social media networks to voice their demands for fairer distribution of wealth and freedom. Analysts have predicted that the elections will not be free and fair. In the capital, Luanda, Angolan police arrested several members of the Casa CE opposition party yesterday after they tried to enter the Electoral Commission building to demand credentials to observe the vote at polling station, stated a party official. William Tunnett, a candidate for the opposition Casa CE party, told Reuters that police guarding the Electoral Commission building in Luanda fired shots to keep back dozens of young Casa CE militants who tried to approach the building. Let us hear more from Kavera Fatstudo, Angolan artist and activist, and also from Elias Isaac, Angolan country director for Open Society.
For all we know, there's already a fraud being cooked. You know, that's why we've set up a site where people are sending SMS and phone calls reporting like the fraud, you know what I mean? Why? Because these people, they're controlling the Electoral Commission, so they doing everything on their favor, you know what I mean? And deep down, majority of people, they had enough.
As long as Angola is a good business partner, you know, of EU, of the United States, you know, I don't think that, you know, there will be much pressure on the Angolan government. Secondly, is the issue of China. I think China has become a big threat to Western interests, you know, and Western countries do not really want to raise up, you know, critical issues with the Angolan governments because they know that they have China who can very easily substitute them. Changes have to come from within. No longer, you know, the belief that change comes from outside is long gone, you know. This will not happen. The opposition parties, it's their duty, you know. They have to organize, you know. They have to mobilize. It may be a long road, you know, until we get there, but one day we'll get there for sure.